The Corn Rake Mystery, A Farmer Attacks or Wrongly Accused, is a gripping tale of betrayal, tragedy, and the complex search for truth. At the heart of the story is Todd Mullis, a hardworking farmer whose life spirals into chaos when his wife, Amy, is found dead under suspicious circumstances on their Iowa farm. With rumors of infidelity, a troubled marriage, and circumstantial evidence pointing toward Todd, he is arrested and convicted for her murder. As Todd sits behind bars, his children are left to pick up the pieces of a broken family, raised by relatives, while the community remains divided. Was Todd a man driven to violence by betrayal, or is he the victim of a wrongful conviction? This story delves deep into the murky waters of love, deception, and justice, leaving lingering questions about what truly happened in the red shed that fateful day. The story begins in 2018 in Earlville, Iowa, a small rural town with a population of around 800 people. Most residents, including Todd and Amy Mullis, make their living through farming, particularly hog farming. The Mullis family, Todd, Amy, and their 3 children, operate a large farm with 2 hog barns and extensive farming equipment. Amy, 38, is described as outgoing and bubbly, while Todd, 43, is seen as hardworking but intimidating to some. On a chilly November day, the family was busy with chores on their farm. Todd and their 13-year-old son, Tristan, worked in one of the massive hog barns, while Amy, recovering from minor surgery, joined them to help clean barn lights. Despite feeling lightheaded and dizzy, Amy insisted on continuing to work. Todd, concerned for her well-being, suggested she rest, but Amy was determined to stay active. Todd eventually asked Amy to retrieve a pet carrier from a nearby red shed, a task intended to safeguard the farm's cats while heavy machinery was in use. Amy agreed and left the barn. After completing their tasks about 90 minutes later, Todd noticed the pet carrier hadn't been moved. Assuming Amy had gone inside to rest, he sent Tristan to fetch it. When Tristan arrived at the shed, he discovered a horrifying scene. Amy was on her hands and knees, unresponsive, with a corn rake protruding from her back. Panicking, Tristan called for his father. Todd removed the rake, carried Amy to their truck, and rushed toward the nearest hospital, calling 911 en route. Despite his efforts, Amy was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. The immediate conclusion was that Amy's death was a tragic farming accident, but further examination by medical professionals and investigators revealed inconsistencies that raised suspicions of foul play. As investigators delved into Amy's death, unsettling details emerged that cast doubt on the theory of an accidental death. The initial autopsy revealed that Amy's injuries didn't align with merely falling onto the corn rake. The rake in question had 4 sharp prongs, but Amy's body bore 6 puncture wounds, and they were inflicted in 2 different directions. This indicated she had likely been struck twice, or possibly 3 times with the rake. Adding to the suspicion, Amy's body exhibited other injuries: a scrape on her lip and blunt force trauma to her face, hands, and knees. While these could have resulted from a fall, they also hinted at a potential struggle. However, the red shed where Amy was found showed no significant signs of a struggle. No spattered blood beyond the small pool under her body, and no clear evidence to suggest a violent altercation had taken place there. Amy's death became a homicide investigation, and the focus naturally shifted to those closest to her. Todd, her husband, was the first to face scrutiny. Despite claiming he had been working in the barn with Tristan the entire time, investigators questioned his potential motive and alibi. Tristan initially corroborated Todd's claim that they were together and within each other's sight throughout the period in question, providing Todd a seemingly solid alibi. However, as the investigation deepened, troubling aspects of Todd and Amy's relationship came to light. Their marriage had been far from idyllic. Over the years, Amy had confided in friends about feeling trapped and unhappy. She described Todd as controlling, tracking her whereabouts, limiting her social interactions, and creating an approved friends list for her. Amy jokingly referred to herself as a prisoner in her own home, but her remarks hinted at deeper dissatisfaction and unease. Adding to the complexity, Amy had previously engaged in 2 extramarital affairs. One ended years ago, but in 2018, rumors of a new affair began circulating around their small community. This time, Amy was involved with Jerry Frazier, a field manager who worked on the Mullis farm. Although Todd had initially dismissed the rumors after confronting Jerry and his wife, investigators discovered that the affair was real and ongoing. Amy had even expressed to friends her intentions to leave Todd, considering divorce, despite the financial and personal upheaval it would entail. For Todd, Amy's departure could spell disaster, not only the end of their marriage, but potentially the loss of their farm, their children, and the life he had built. As these revelations surfaced, suspicions around Todd grew. Was Amy's death an accident, or did it stem from a motive fueled by betrayal and fear of loss? As the investigation progressed, the spotlight on Todd and Amy's troubled marriage intensified. While Amy had confided in friends about her unhappiness, she had also begun making plans for a future without Todd. Investigators learned she had started setting aside furniture and quietly considering divorce. This revelation added weight to the theory that Amy's decision to leave could have been a potential motive for murder. Amy's affair with Jerry Fraser was another crucial piece of the puzzle. Despite Todd's earlier dismissal of his suspicions after questioning Jerry and his wife, the truth about the affair surfaced. Amy and Jerry had started their relationship in May 2018, meeting in secret at various locations, including motels, back roads, and even on the Mullis farm itself. While Jerry viewed their connection as largely physical, Amy expressed deeper emotional attachment. She told friends she hoped Jerry might leave his wife for her, but she was prepared to be alone if he didn't. The affair was risky, not just emotionally, but also socially. Earlville, a tight-knit community, was rife with rumors, and people began talking. Amy, aware of the gossip, had planned to tell Todd there was no truth to the rumors. Whether or not she ever had this conversation remained unclear. Jerry, on the other hand, grew uneasy after Todd's phone calls and suggested they slow things down to avoid drawing further suspicion. Amy's potential departure from Todd's life wasn't just personal. It could have had dire financial consequences for him. A divorce would likely entitle Amy to a substantial portion of their shared assets, possibly including the farm Todd had spent his life building. Todd's own statements about his dedication to the farm, which he had worked on since childhood, painted a picture of a man deeply attached to his livelihood, one who might go to great lengths to protect it. As investigators uncovered these details, they returned to Todd with pointed questions. During a second interview, they openly accused him of murdering Amy. They suggested he acted out of anger and betrayal, unwilling to lose his wife, children, and farm to her infidelity. Todd, however, maintained his innocence, insisting he had no knowledge of Amy's affair and had never left the hog barn that day. The investigators weren't convinced. They obtained search warrants for electronic devices from the Mullis household, hoping to find evidence of premeditation or a motive. What they discovered on Todd's iPad raised even more questions and eyebrows. As part of their investigation, authorities seized electronic devices from the Mullis household, including laptops, iPads, and video surveillance equipment. While Todd maintained his innocence, the data extracted from these devices painted a troubling picture that would later become pivotal in court. Investigators scrutinized Todd's iPad and uncovered a series of unsettling Google searches. The queries included phrases such as, "What did the Aztecs do with cheating spouses? Killing unfaithful women. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Thrill of the kill." These searches, combined with visits to articles like 16 Facts About Cheating Women, suggested an obsession with infidelity and its consequences. To the prosecution, they pointed toward premeditation and a possible motive for murder. However, Todd denied making these searches, claiming multiple family members, including Amy, had access to the device. Curiously, investigators also found searches on the iPad for wedding dresses, jewelry, and Pinterest boards, things Todd insisted he had no interest in or knowledge of. This discrepancy muddied the waters. Could Amy have made some of these searches? If so, were the incriminating queries hers, possibly reflecting paranoia about her own behavior being discovered? The investigation into the farm's security cameras added another layer of intrigue. Surveillance footage from cameras pointed directly at the area where Amy died was inexplicably missing. The cameras had stopped recording shortly before the incident and resumed the day after. Todd explained this by saying the farm's many cats frequently climbed on the equipment, and he believed they had accidentally knocked it offline. While plausible, the timing struck investigators as suspicious, leading them to suspect the cameras had been deliberately disabled. To them, this was further evidence of premeditation. Investigators also questioned Jerry Frazier, Amy's lover, as a possible suspect. Jerry claimed he had been at his own farm in Anamosa, about 45 minutes away, on the day of Amy's death. He described spending the day with his son, setting up tanning beds for their pigs, an unusual but verified activity for hog shows. Phone records corroborated Jerry's alibi, showing his phone consistently pinged near his home that day. This cleared him of direct involvement, narrowing the focus back to Todd. With mounting evidence and Todd under increasing suspicion, authorities made their move. Todd Mullis was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. However, he adamantly maintained his innocence, arguing Amy's death was a tragic accident. The stage was now set for a trial that would captivate the nation and bring the small town of Earlville under an intense spotlight. Todd Mullis's trial began in the summer of 2019, and it quickly became a spectacle that gripped both Earlville and the wider public. The prosecution and defense painted starkly different pictures of Todd, Amy, and the events surrounding her death. At the heart of the trial was a debate over whether Amy's death was a freak farming accident or a calculated act of murder. The prosecution sought to portray Todd as a controlling and possessive husband who killed Amy out of anger and betrayal. They emphasized the troubled state of their marriage, Amy's affair with Jerry Frazier, and Todd's potential financial ruin if she divorced him. Witnesses testified that Amy had expressed fear of Todd, telling friends that if he ever found out about her infidelity, he might kill her. The medical evidence became a linchpin of their argument. The prosecution highlighted the 6 puncture wounds on Amy's back and their inconsistent angles, which indicated she had been struck multiple times with the corn rake. They argued that it would be nearly impossible for Amy to have accidentally fallen on the rake in such a manner. The Google searches from Todd's iPad also played a significant role. The prosecution framed the searches about cheating spouses and killing unfaithful women as evidence of Todd's premeditation. They coupled this with the suspicious outage of the farm's security cameras to suggest Todd had planned and carried out the murder. Todd's defense team struggled to counter the prosecution's narrative. They initially surprised even Todd by conceding that Amy had been murdered, abandoning the argument that her death could have been an accident. This strategic misstep left them with fewer options to argue for Todd's innocence. The defense focused on Todd's consistent claims of innocence and his alibi. Todd testified that he had never left the hog barn on the day of Amy's death, reiterating that his son, Tristan, was with him most of the time. However, under cross-examination, Tristan's account shifted slightly. He admitted he had left his father's site to get a drink of water, creating a window of opportunity, however brief, for Todd to commit the crime. The defense also questioned the reliability of the evidence, particularly the Google searches. Todd claimed he didn't make the searches and pointed out that the iPad was used by multiple family members. They argued that the searches for wedding dresses and jewelry, clearly unrelated to Todd, cast doubt on who was truly behind the incriminating queries. Finally, Todd's demeanor during the trial became a point of contention. While some saw his reserved and stoic nature as evidence of guilt, his defense team argued it was simply his personality, consistent with his reputation as a no-nonsense, straightforward farmer. One of the most dramatic moments of the trial came when the prosecution introduced a tip from a viewer who had analyzed Todd's frantic 911 call. They claimed Todd could be heard whispering, "cheating whore," and "go to hell, cheating whore," under his breath while performing CPR on Amy. The defense countered that Todd was saying, "she's so cold," reflecting his panic and desperation. The jury listened to the audio repeatedly, and opinions remained divided on what was actually said. This ambiguity, however, left a lasting impression on the jury. In their closing arguments, the prosecution leaned heavily on the circumstantial evidence, the medical findings, the Google searches, and the possibility of a premeditated crime. The defense reiterated that there was no direct physical evidence linking Todd to Amy's death and argued that the case against him was built on assumptions and incomplete evidence. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Todd Mullis was found guilty of first-degree murder. Jurors later revealed they were swayed by the circumstantial evidence, particularly the Google searches and the inconsistencies in Todd's actions following Amy's injury. Todd was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, though he maintained his innocence. For the Mullis children, the trial brought no closure, leaving them grappling with the loss of their mother, their father's imprisonment, and the stigma that surrounded their family. The conviction of Todd Mullis sent ripples through the tightly knit community of Earlville, Iowa. While some residents believed justice had been served, others harbored doubts about the fairness of the trial and the strength of the evidence against Todd. The town, already grappling with the loss of a beloved member, found itself divided by whispers of uncertainty and lingering questions. Todd Mullis began his life sentence in the local county jail, a stark contrast to the expansive freedom of his farm. The once vibrant and industrious farmer now faced the harsh reality of prison life. Friends who had once admired his dedication to the farm found it difficult to reconcile the man they knew with the convicted murderer. Amy's friends, though devastated by her loss, remained resolute in their belief that Todd was guilty, often sharing stories of Amy's fears and their own suspicions. Inside the prison walls, Todd struggled with isolation and the weight of his conviction. He maintained his innocence, spending hours poring over legal texts and reaching out to advocacy groups that fought for wrongful convictions. Letters from supporters, though infrequent, provided some solace, reminding him that not everyone had abandoned him. For Amy and Todd's children, the aftermath of the trial was equally painful. Tristan, now a teenager, grappled with conflicting emotions. He mourned the loss of his mother and struggled to understand why his father had been taken away. Therapy sessions became a crucial outlet for him, helping him navigate the trauma and confusion that clouded his days. The youngest child, a spirited 7-year-old, remained largely unaware of the complexities surrounding his parents' relationship. He clung to memories of happier times on the farm, finding comfort in the simplicity of childhood even as his family unraveled. Earlville itself underwent a subtle transformation in the wake of the trial. Conversations that once centered around farming and daily life now frequently touched on justice, trust, and the fragility of reputation in a small town. Community meetings became platforms for discussing the case, with some advocating for Todd's innocence and others supporting the verdict. Local media outlets continued to cover the story, often featuring interviews with key players and experts who debated the strength of the evidence. Documentaries emerged, delving into the intricacies of the case and highlighting the broader issues within the criminal justice system, such as the reliance on digital evidence and the challenges of prosecuting cases without direct physical evidence. Years passed, and Todd's case remained a topic of heated debate. Advocacy groups renewed their efforts, presenting new evidence and expert testimonies that questioned the validity of the prosecution's claims. Investigations into the digital evidence revealed potential loopholes, suggesting that the incriminating Google searches might not have been solely Todd's doing. Experts argued that the shared use of devices in a household could complicate the interpretation of digital footprints, casting further doubt on the case against him. In 2023, a breakthrough emerged when a former law enforcement officer came forward with information about procedural irregularities during the investigation. This revelation reignited hopes for Todd's exoneration, prompting a re-examination of the case by higher courts. Legal battles ensued, with Todd's legal team tirelessly advocating for a new trial, emphasizing the possibility of wrongful conviction. As the community awaited the outcome of the appeals, Earlville began to heal, albeit slowly. Memorials for Amy were held, celebrating her life and contributions to the community. Her legacy as a loving mother and dedicated friend endured, providing a semblance of closure for those who knew her. Todd, ever steadfast in his belief in his innocence, continued to fight from within the system. The possibility of a new trial offered a sliver of hope, not just for him, but for the integrity of the justice system in Earlville. Supporters rallied, organizing petitions and raising awareness about the case, underscoring the importance of scrutinizing convictions that seemed overshadowed by circumstantial evidence. The Corn Rake mystery, as it came to be known, left an indelible mark on Earlville. It served as a stark reminder of the complexities inherent in the pursuit of justice, especially in small communities where every action and word is magnified. The unresolved questions, how Amy died, what truly transpired in the Red Shed, and whether Todd was rightfully convicted, continued to haunt those connected to the case. In boardrooms and backyards alike, conversations persisted about the balance between evidence and trust, the role of digital footprints in modern investigations, and the human cost of wrongful convictions. The story of Todd and Amy Mullis became a cautionary tale, prompting introspection and dialogue about ensuring that justice serves truth, not merely the semblance of it. As the years moved forward, the hope remained that truth would eventually surface, bringing peace to a family torn apart and restoring faith in a community striving to reconcile its own complexities. Until then, the Corn Rake mystery stood as a poignant chapter in Earlville's history, a testament to the enduring quest for justice and the profound impact of its elusive nature.